Welcome to Empower Her Radio, the space for powerhouse women ready to step into their next level of abundance, purpose, and personal freedom. I'm Dr. Corey Winn, a high performance coach, doctor of physical therapy, philanthropist, and business consultant. I help ambitious women align with their highest calling, expand their wealth and impact, and create a life that feels as good as it looks. If you're a high achieving woman who's built success yet finds yourself craving more alignment, more purpose, more ease, you're in the right place. Here, we bridge the gap between ambition and fulfillment. Through transformative conversations and proven strategies, you'll gain the courage to step into the fullest expression of you. Build a powerhouse business that aligns with your expertise and divine gifts, and lead your life, both personally and professionally, with unshakable confidence, worthiness, and compassion. This is about expansion, legacy, and owning your power unapologetically. You already have everything inside of you to create a life of unlimited possibility. It's time to unlock it. Welcome to your next level. Let's dive in. I am so excited for today's guest. She's a woman who walked away from a business funded by Mark Cuban, yes, that Shark Tank story, and chose her health, her family, and her freedom instead. Jayla Siciliano is the powerhouse behind Atlas Vacations, a luxury real estate business she runs from across the country, and the host of the Seed Money podcast, where she's helping early stage entrepreneurs step into possibility. She's proof that you can pivot at 40 and you can burn it all down and build it again, and you can live a life designed by choice, not by default. Jayla, welcome to the show.
Hi, so nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
So tell us your story, pivoting, burning it all down. I know our audience wants to know all the things.
Yeah, it's so funny hearing that term burn it all down. Because yeah, it kind of is that. Although in the moment, I don't know if it feels like that, because I think if you felt like you were doing that, it would feel a little too crazy. You know?
Yes, we've all had that burn it all down moment though of like, oh, what is
Yeah,
happening right now?
going for it. Yeah, so I started off in a corporate career for 7 years. I had like the dream job of working at Burton Snowboards and, decided at 30 it was kind of now or never, which looking back, I realize is so not true. But at the time, that's how I felt, and it kind of lit a little fire under me. And I left my job to start a company in the wine industry with no experience in that industry, no connections, no track record as an entrepreneur, no real personal funding, like didn't have a huge, huge, giant piggy bank that I was sitting on. And, 6 months later was like, oh my God, what did I do?
Uh-huh.
But it was sheer determination at that point. I told everybody I was doing this and I believed in it. And so I spent about 10 years doing that. And it was a crazy process. Total roller coaster, like you mentioned, ended up on Shark Tank, which was kind of a Hail Mary move, got the deal with Mark Cuban. Um, so much good stuff comes with that, all of a sudden opportunities left and right, but without focus and discipline, found myself in a place of extreme burnout.
Mhm.
And it's a tough industry anyway, alcohol, tough to be profitable. I was trying to carve out a new category. So educating an industry and a whole consumer group is very expensive. All that led to waking up one day going, oh my God, the dream isn't, what I thought it was.
Mhm.
What am I doing? We put off having kids. I've missed so many friends' weddings, birthdays, baby showers. My husband's super supportive, but I don't know. It definitely tests relationships when I'm never available to go to dinner with our friends or always
Right.
canceling things last minute. That wears on relationships. And so I had to make the really tough decision to talk to my investors and say, this isn't working for me and I want to transition out, which I
Mhm.
did, which was a very, very tough decision. But I'm so thankful I made that decision. So I think it's actually harder to make that decision than it was the decision to start the business, because that's all fun and
Okay.
exciting.
Uh-huh.
The hard decisions when you're in a really tough spot can be very challenging. So I decided, we started a family. I took a year off. I decompressed a little bit. And then I was like, I never want to start another business. Just want to collect a paycheck. So I went back to work. I was VP of sales and marketing for a company. And then realized I overcorrected, and this isn't what I want either. It was great because I wasn't traveling as much, so I got to be home a lot more, which was one of my goals. I didn't want to be this mom who was traveling constantly. Works for some people, but that wasn't kind of my vision. Um, but I was still having to be on this a little bit 9 to 5 thing, and I don't know, Zoom calls, and it just didn't have full flexibility like I wanted. And I ended up kind of falling into a space. We bought a short-term rental, and the management company was so terrible. And my husband said, "You should do it, you should do it." And finally I said, "Okay, I'll do it." And then I realized, I was like, actually, this could be, a business that I could run and have flexibility. I don't have to grow it into this giant, huge thing.
Mhm.
But I could really create like a lucrative, sustainable business. And so I completely pivoted again, and I did the wake up at 4 a.m. and set it all up to be able to scale it to a point where I could make it profitable, join some masterminds, figured it out. And there were moments of, oh my God, what am I doing again? But yeah, I think, I just kind of was excited, and that helps push a lot of those concerns to the side.
Uh-huh.
And happy to say, after all of that, I learned a lot of hard lessons, and I finally have, a business, a company that revolves around my lifestyle, not my lifestyle revolving around the company or the job.
Mhm.
And it was a long road to get here, but it really is possible. And I sometimes even go, wow, I can't believe like I did this. And sometimes I find myself saying, should I grow it bigger? Should I grow it bigger? It's just that, but then I have to like catch myself like, no, my priority right now is flexibility. Yes, I love making money, but I want to maintain like my health and being present with my family. But I set it up really well, and, got things very organized and efficient, and started a podcast to be able to give back, because luxury real estate isn't really helping the world. So I started the Seed Money podcast to help early stage entrepreneurs. So that's where I'm at now. So yeah, lots of pivots and changes, and very deliberate moves to finally get to a place where I am now.
Well, and I just want to honor all of that for just a second because so many women find themselves in this box or this lane and they feel like they have to stay. So, all of that pivoting just gave our audience the permission. It's like, oh, I can prioritize my health. I can prioritize my family. Oh, I don't have to stay in this lane just because I went to school here or I started this company or I started in this lane. So the fact that you've pivoted so many times and landed on top, obviously, you've done very well for yourself, just gives our audience that hope of maybe there is something else I can do. I mean, you've used your expertise in so many different ways. Has there been a time that you feel like your Shark Tank experience or your corporate sales experience has really lent itself to what you're doing now? Or has it been something that you've really kind of totally revamped on your own and taken the initiative to invest in yourself in the masterminds to kind of figure it out?
No, I mean, I think there's obviously, I think, time and experience builds on itself. And there's tons of skills that I've drawn from, other things that I've done that help now. And a lot of the skills that we learn, I think, to your point of, we think we're on this one track or channel, and we don't realize how applicable
Mhm.
those skills are to so many different things. And sometimes it's a strength to take them from one thing and apply them to something else. Like for example, the industry that I'm in now is a very old school industry, and a
Mhm.
lot of the companies have been doing it the same way for 40 years.
Uh-huh.
And my experience in, tech stacks and stuff like that, that I've used in other things that I've done, are really helping me to have an edge in this a little bit more like stale industry, right? So
Mhm.
I think, but it's very hard to identify those things yourself.
Mhm.
And it was really the my boss at the corporate job in between, when after the 10 years of having my wine company, I left that company and I was like, I don't even know what I'm good at. I've been doing so many different things. Like, I don't even know what my skills are. And it was really, she is like one of the most amazing people, such a mentor, inspiration. We've stayed very close friends. But she really helped me to see, like, wow, I do have all these other strengths. And I hired a coach. I did a skills test called the Strength Finder, Gallup Strength
I
Finder
love
test.
that.
Yeah, such a great test. So I think it takes, like people will say they're not happy, and I always say, like, give yourself a year to try to just figure out who you are and what it is that you want to do. I also think you can quit and just go the other direction in a day's notice. I'm all for that also, because sometimes that lights the fire to make things happen.
Mhm.
But I think it does take peeling back some layers, figuring out what you're good at, and then applying those to whatever the heck you want to do. And yeah, I don't even know what I'll be doing 10 years from now. Like at this point, sometimes I'm like, yeah, maybe it would have been beneficial to build off one career, your whole life. I can see there's pros to that. But if you're not completely happy doing that, like pivot as many times as you need to. You only live once. I would so much rather regret trying something than regret not trying something.
Oh, 100%.
So,
100%.
yeah.
We do. We only have this one life, and you don't know what you're capable of until you try. So, what I also hear from you is having invested in yourself allowed you to trust yourself again and to trust your own intuition, which so many of us have lost. So, giving our audience that permission too of you can invest in yourself and figure it out. You don't have to have it all figured out already.
Yeah.
So now that you are in the luxury travel business and also, I'm sorry, luxury real estate and also the Seed podcast, what does a day in your life look like with all of your priorities so much better aligned?
Let's see. So I wake up, I'd like to say I don't look at my phone, but I do. And then just kind of basically get my son ready for school. Um, I balance my time now between probably a couple hours a day on just like, getting stuff done type stuff, payroll, like I'm still doing, some of that stuff. Um, I'm very out of the day-to-day operations, but there's still, certain things obviously I'm doing. And then I try to put the second half of my time, my work day, quote unquote, into things that are going to like open up opportunities in the future. And so, right now with the podcast, I love doing the podcast. I do, maybe 1 to 2 interviews a week,
Mhm.
trying to figure out like, how I can be more helpful there to people. Every single day I do an hour-long walk. It's like my non-negotiable. I love it. It's like my meditation. And then I usually pick my son up around 3, do something with him, take him to sports. And I don't work at night anymore. It's amazing. I used to like be on my computer after he went to bed, and I still have to like it's like almost PTSD where I feel like, wait, am I supposed to get on my computer? And I'm like, no, I don't have to. Like, I have hobbies and I do other things.
Uh-huh.
I will have a couple weeks where I'm like, oh my goodness, there's a lot on my plate, but it's typically stuff to do with like taxes or buying another property, or it's like these other project things that are more short-lived. But this grind of day to day of me being in the weeds, I'm not in that place anymore, which is so nice. So, every once in a while, like total transparency, if you have a team member leave or something like that, you have to dig in and, re-stabilize things. I do find if we're growing, there's a little bit more work, that can, but it's way, way, way mellower. I mean, even my husband on the weekends, I'm not working all weekend. I'm not trying to squeeze in things here and there. It's just a much healthier lifestyle. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, and you talk about your non-negotiables, and I know personally going from working all day, every day on weekends between being an entrepreneur and a PT, um, you burn out really quickly and oftentimes don't even know you're living in survival mode. So, how did that burnout really show up for you to really help you create those boundaries that you have now?
Oh man, yeah, burnout sneaks up on you, and I don't even think you realize it. You're so burnt out, you don't even realize it. And it kind of happens slowly. I think I was very numb, to be honest. I didn't look forward to even like friend events or anything because it was like effort to talk to people.
Uh-huh.
Um, it was crazy. I didn't even realize it. And then it took me a long time to get out of it. Like it's not something you just go do a couple yoga sessions. I mean, your body is physically depleted. It's like bad. Now that I know what happens, your body is like, whoa, that is not good. So I did a lot. I have a friend who has a program called the Adrenal Recode, and it really resets your adrenal. So I did like a year of physical stuff to actually get my body rebalanced.
Mhm.
I did a ton of meditating, hiring a coach. I mean, it was a process. I did not get out of that easily. But now I do know like the signs of when I'm kind of going like, if I have a busy couple weeks, I'm like, oh, this I gotta pull back. I gotta just say no. I need to cancel some things. Like,
Uh-huh.
you know,
Absolutely.
I can't go down that path. I need to so I do recognize it better, but burnout is really, really tough. And I think kids add another layer. There's so many just things, and we're all going a million miles an hour. So yeah, I don't know if that answered your question, but yeah, it's tough. It's not fun. I definitely I think people just have to give themselves some space and realize like if they truly are burnt out, they need to get some support to get out of it because it's tough to get out of it on your own. You don't just like snap out of it.
Well, and as women, we're so programmed to do it all.
Hmm.
The expectation, whether it's how you grew up, I watched my mom do it all. So to go back into the space of being able to receive help and even and be okay with recognizing that you need help is huge. What were you able to, with all that work, kind of set your boundaries immediately, or have they changed over the course of the last few years of, you know, maybe gradually cutting back on work, or were you kind of all of a sudden, no, I'm done. This is not working anymore. These are my new boundaries.
Um, hmm. I'd say a combination, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, I think I cut out the working at night and just, the early mornings, like right away. Um, or not right away, because I was doing the early morning thing there for a little while. I mean, it's I think it's been a transition. It's like an ebb and flow. But the boundaries that I have now are really more around not taking on too much
Mhm.
and being okay with missing opportunities. That's the hard one for me. Like
Uh-huh.
all the other stuff, like yes, I don't, I use Instacart. I do all these things that are help take things off my plate, right? I have people helping with all kinds of things. But saying no to opportunities is probably one of my biggest, challenges that I have
Mhm.
a hard time with. So that's kind of the boundary that I constantly remind myself of is just not looking at my calendar and making sure my calendar does not get full ever. Like I like having multiple days a week with nothing on it. And I don't like having more than 2 meetings a day on my calendar. Like if I can just keep my calendar looking like that, I know that I'm avoiding this like too much work situation and getting stressed.
Yeah, I love that. And it does. It takes a little bit of an ebb and flow and figure out what you need, and it may change over the years. I think that's what I'm hearing as well, is giving our listeners the permission of it doesn't have to be all or nothing. It's not a perfect line. Um, when you talk to your colleagues and your peers about your pivoting, how many of them have been too afraid? You talk about a change in your 30s and your 40s. How many people do you meet who are terrified to pivot but are so unhappy? What would you tell them?
I have a lot of friends in that situation right now. I mean, they've been, we're approaching 50 and they maybe have been working in the same career or job now for 20, 25 years.
Mhm.
And something's missing. They're not happy with their work life. It feels like a grind. And they just don't know where to start or how to pivot. And it's like, yeah, it's hard to put myself in those shoes because to me, it's like, how can you not? Like, how can you not?
You and I are the same in that.
You know? But for them, I think similar to what I said earlier is rather than trying to think about I need to make a change, what is it going to be? Just set the goal of figuring out what your options are. So give yourself 6 months to go, okay, here's all my options. I could buy a business. I could start a business. I could get a new job. I could consult. And then just start fleshing out what those options are, but tell yourself at the end of 6 months you're going to commit to a change or 12 months, whatever it is, because obviously there's all kinds of factors. Um, and I think the biggest one is this false sense of security around having a job. I think people feel like, oh my gosh, businesses are so risky and they're afraid to invest in a business or in themselves. And I mean, I've invested in everything I've done
Mhm.
personally.
Yes.
Um, but they've all, given me a return in some way, shape, or form. So I don't know. I don't think you can make a bad personal investment. If you're at least start something on the side, you know what I mean? I don't know, just start something, take action, I think is the biggest thing. The sitting there thinking about it is just doesn't really, 5 years later, you kind of wake up and you could look back and go, wow, I could have spent those 5 years starting something on the side. And nothing happens quickly either. So
Right.
start something, just take an action towards something different, and it's like we were talking about this the other day. I think with real estate, I talk to a lot of people who want to invest in real estate and they don't know where to start. And it's like, just start listening to a couple podcasts every
Mhm.
week. Just make that your goal. Like, just start educating yourself. And you can get into analysis paralysis at some point. You got to jump, but just start taking some action, looking at listings, exploring all the funding options. You don't even know what you can do. Just talk to lenders, talk to people, just start getting, that's how I've started. Everything I've done is just like diving into self-educating. And then you're like 6 months later, you're like, oh my gosh, I know so much more than I did 6 months ago about this one thing. Now I'm ready to take the next step.
Well, and you talked about investing in yourself. And so often, I do think that those of us who've been trapped in a career for a decade or two, we don't recognize the skill sets that we have and the expertise that we have. So, having the mentor that you had in your company, as well as investing in yourself in a coach, that's the purpose of those people to help you uncover all of those things that can open so many doors to you. You know, when you talk about investing specifically in real estate, were there any like wealth consciousness or like money beliefs that you had in the past that you've had to work through to get to where you are today?
Oh yeah, of course. I think we all have those, right? To some degree. Real estate itself, my parents were always into kind of real estate and renovations and had rental properties and stuff. So that one is a little more comfortable or just kind of within my, sphere of what I grew up in.
Mhm.
Um, but I will say that, but it's taken me a while to kind of realize what my parents did is they would do everything themselves
Mhm.
around that. And they, were limited to kind of funds that they had, whereas I've been able to strategically leverage more in a smart way with plenty of reserves.
Mhm.
But I think thinking a step beyond, that, and it took a little while to kind of come to that place, I guess. But, I think, yeah, again, that's just like tons of reading over the years and researching and realizing. that there's so many ways to make money. You know what I mean? Um,
And
but
that you have value to offer and that people will pay you for that knowledge or that expertise. So just owning your worth in that space.
yeah, yeah, totally. But yeah, I think in terms of money, like in my first company, that was a limiting factor. I definitely had limiting beliefs there around, I raised $1 million because that sounded like a reasonable amount. If
Hmm.
I had thought 10 million was reasonable, I believe I would have raised 10 million. It's
Oh,
just we're
yeah.
we're totally set by what we think is achievable.
Mhm.
Because if I had said, no, I'm going to raise 10 million, I would have looked for the opportunities to find the 10 million. But instead, I was looking for the opportunities to raise the million, which I did. But it wasn't enough, you know what I mean? So,
Uh-huh. Well, and you mentioned earlier that the Atlas luxury, real estate isn't a way to give back. So tell us about the Seed Money podcast and what you're doing with that.
yeah. So when I started the wine company, I went through all my 401k and all that stuff, credit cards, and realized I needed to raise money. And all the content out there was very VC driven, and it was really intimidating. Um, Very male driven, especially, this was 15 years ago. And um, I just remember being like, oh my God, how am I going to figure this out? It's like, this is overwhelming, intimidating. And I still think it's very much that way. There's a lot more content now. There's a lot of great content, but it's very much from the VC or investor perspective.
Mhm.
And raising money is such a mental game, especially, in the early stage. And so I really want to, so my like little tagline is, raising money for normal people who don't live in Silicon Valley. So if you don't identify with the like, I'm trying to be a unicorn and I'm, pitching Silicon Valley investors, if that's not you, there's a million ways to raise money. There's so much money out there. Money should never be an obstacle to doing something.
Uh-huh.
And so I really try to break down like both the technical side of structuring it, making sure, you do things the right way and no handshake deals and stuff like that, to also just the mental and mindset side of it, approaching investors and, just it's a tough process and it can be very lonely. So just trying to make it approachable and peeling back some of the layers that I don't think a lot of people talk about.
Mhm. Well, and you speak about working with investors for entrepreneurs. Are you also in the nonprofit space, or is it mostly for small business startups?
I've mostly done small business startups, but I think it's kind of the same process for nonprofits. Yeah, I mean and a lot of the for-profit companies now, ones that I've come across, they have, a social angle or something like that. But yeah, most of the companies I've been working with are for-profit.
Well, and I also love what you said just a few minutes ago. There's so much money out there. I mean, I had that conversation with a colleague the other day about my personal nonprofit. And I said, there are so many investors, there's so many philanthropists just waiting for somebody to come talk to them. So the fact that your podcast focuses so heavily on that, just letting people know, because until you know what's out there, you don't know where to start. And women, especially, I love that you're doing this because I think there's also been a stigma over the years of this kind of male dominated world that we just can't step into, or we don't know how to step into, or if you haven't been in it before, you don't know how to play the games or the rules. So, do you find yourself helping more women, or is it somewhere in the middle?
It's somewhere in the middle, and I've thought about that. I would like to help more women. But I don't know. Yeah, it's funny. Most of the, again, I haven't been doing a lot to like actively pursue a certain group of people in any way, shape, or form. So
Mhm.
most of the decks that have come across my, computer have been male founders. But I would like to support more women because I do think, there is a minority factor there in this space, especially. So any and all extra support is helpful. Um, I don't think it matters though. When I was raising money, more often than not, I was the only female, entrepreneur in the room pitching to a bunch of male investors. And you just got to own it and stand out. For me, the best, and I still believe like the best way to get funding is being fully prepared. So having all your ducks in a row, having a good pitch deck, having, understanding how to follow up, all the things to do. The more prepared you are, it doesn't matter. Like you need to stand out above the rest. And there's plenty of guys out there with crappy pitch decks who just think they're amazing, who don't come across professional. So I don't think it matters as much, male, female, or, whatever you are, um, as much as it does like being buttoned up, being
Mhm.
professional, and having all your ducks in a row. Like that can overcome, I think, any, other perceived issues or anything like that. So that's my big thing, and that's how I overcame that, was just being super dialed and professional and buttoned up. And I don't think it really mattered that I was a 5 foot tall female with zero experience.
Well, and when you step into the room with confidence, people believe that you know what you're doing,
Yeah.
even if you don't have any experience, and that's huge. So owning what you're doing and having the confidence to step into a room, that's half the battle.
Yeah.
I want to be respectful of your time for sure. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you want to make sure the audience knows about, that you want to share?
Um, let's see. I mean, I just can't say enough. To your point earlier, I'm just such a believer in pivoting. And it's like, I don't know, do whatever it takes to just try something new, because it opens so many more doors. And it might not even be that first pivot, it might take a couple pivots, but
Mhm.
it's so worth it to not stay in something that you're not happy with. And maybe you'll pivot and realize what you were doing wasn't even that bad, and you go back to it, but from a different stance or a different angle. But change is good. It's the only way we grow, it's the only way we evolve. So just like whatever way, shape, or form, you can figure out making a change, I am a huge advocate of, because I just think it's such, and it just keeps life interesting. And I think especially as we get older, like I have this realization. I have an 8-year-old right now. I was like, oh my God, he's going to be out of the house in 10 years already. But I have like so many other things I want to do and try. And the other thing is just, who cares what anybody else thinks? I think a lot of people stay where they're at because of what people think. And I love the saying, the only two people you should care about their opinions are your 8-year-old self and your 80-year-old self.
Mhm.
And literally, who cares what other people think? Because it's like they don't really care as much as maybe you think they do anyway.
Well, and think about the legacy you're building for your son. The fact that he can watch his mom go after things that set her soul on fire versus the monotony of going to the same job every day, the same commute, the same everything for 35 years. I mean, I'm like you. I that makes me want to cringe just thinking about it, but that was my parents. They
Hmm.
had the secure job and they retired and they're doing fine. And I just look back though now that they're 70 and wonder what if? What if
Hmm.
they had pivoted several times? So I love that. How can our audience follow you, get in touch with you, listen to your podcast?
Yeah, Seed Money podcast, Jayla, if you just any podcast platform, on YouTube also, and LinkedIn. You can DM me there, questions. And I'm just starting, I think, a Facebook group as like a little mastermind membership. It's free, but just a group where anybody is in that fundraising process. Because I'm answering a lot of questions, but I think people could learn from each other. The masterminds I've been in, the
Mhm.
most value is connecting with other people in there. So it's a free group as long as you're in that fundraising, stage.
Mhm.
Seed Money Mastermind, just kind of kicking that off to try to like just create a little space for people to connect and ask questions and do that kind of thing. So that's it.
That's awesome. Well, this has been such a great conversation. Thank you for being on the show today.
Yes, thanks for having me.
As we close out today's episode, I want to leave you with this. Your next level is already within you. If you're feeling that pull for more clarity, more alignment, and more courage to step fully into who you're meant to be, this is your invitation to take the next step. Whether you're an entrepreneur ready to scale or a woman standing at the edge of something bigger, the path forward starts with trusting your desires, owning your worth, and leading with your inner knowing. This is exactly what I offer: private VIP coaching, and where I guide women inside the 10K Club and 50K Club through consulting with She Sells and Superhuman Selling to help you gain clarity, step into aligned action, and build a life and business that reflects your highest vision. If you're ready to explore what's next, let's have a conversation. Book a free call now at www.corywinn.com/free call. I can't wait to connect with you. Talk soon.